Welcome to Load the Box. The Vikings are 6-4. Jordan, I think it's looking like I'm gonna have to take an L on my the Vikings will only win 4 of the last 9 games take. Things happen, losing streaks happen, just as winning streaks can happen, but they're 2-0 since I said they would go 4-5 down the stretch. So um, we will see how that plays out, but I am happy to be wrong at this point.
Isn't it wonderful? You give a negative take and it just doesn't matter because if you're wrong, the team's doing well, so you get to
It's
celebrate.
great.
And if you're right, then you get to say, "Hey, I was right about this thing." That was a fun first half against the Saints, and then a very not fun second half. It was very Mike Zimmer football, wasn't it? I'm gonna pass it off to you. I'm gonna try and get this other camera hooked up.
Yeah, it was very strange. It had a lot of feels of the 2017. I guess it would have been played in January 2018, but the Minneapolis Miracle NFC divisional game against the Saints. I don't know about you, but I had that same feeling of up big at half. Saints start chipping away. The Saints obviously never took the lead, but it had that sort of like, what are we doing here? Can't do anything on offense sort of thing. And it was definitely a tale of two halves for the offense. I thought generally speaking the defense was pretty good all day. Um, yes, they allow those 2 sort of desperation touchdowns to Jameis Winston, but they also got 2 interceptions off of him. And there was never really a point where it looked like the Saints were going to drive down the field and tie the game. They had a chance to, but the defense held their own. The offense was very much, explosive, dynamic, controlling the game in the first half and just sort of putting on a fireworks show with the Josh Dobbs superhero plays and the the direct snap to Ty Chandler and TJ Hawkinson getting bent over backwards, catching touchdowns. But yeah, for whatever reason, everything sort of stalled out. I think, the second half was just sort of brutal. It was one of, after their opening drive field goal, I think they had 6 drives that, 5 resulted in a punt. 1 resulted in a missed field goal, and they had like 23 plays for a total of 62 yards, I believe, which, do the math on that, it's really bad. It's just over 2 yards a play. So, Jordan, I don't know, I can't see you, but I think you're still there. What do you see? What did you have for thoughts on, maybe why the offense sort of regressed or was stagnated outside of just, hey, the Saints have a good defense and eventually they're going to show up. And by the way, the Vikings are playing a backup quarterback.
I don't have video right now, so enjoy a tiny picture of a little man that I whittled a couple of years ago. But no, I think, and I kind of jokingly said it at the beginning of the show, right? It was Mike Zimmer football, and it really was. It was, and I'm going to put words in Kevin O'Connell's mouth for a second. I think it was, I don't trust Josh Dobbs fully to go out and execute the offense. The Saints are a turnover machine in terms of their defense. Why risk it? Well, 3 possessions. We got a field goal to make it a maximum 3 possession lead of 24 points. Why take the risk and, let Josh Dobbs throw us out of the game? I think was Kevin O'Connell's theory or approach.
Yeah.
I disagree with that 100%. I think that that's a terrible way to play football. You should be going for throats. And once Jameis threw the first touchdown, it was telling. I think it was the drive after that. We ran the ball 3 times with Alex Madison. I think it was Madison. Maybe it was Chandler. But I'm pretty sure we ran the ball like 3 straight times and just nothing happened. And then we punt the ball and then Jameis goes down. And there were some questionable penalties. We did have, 1 touchdown taken off the board there with what I think, and this is the love for Josh Dobbs is just never ending, in my opinion, at this point. And I'm sure that this gravy train will stop at some point, but I can't foresee it happening. Josh Dobbs called the holding penalty on Brian O'Neill that took Ty Chandler's touchdown run away. He said, like, yeah, it was questionable, but, we got a hold. And it's just like, you've been here for like 2 weeks and you're already like standing up for your guys. And I don't know. I just love stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm not. I don't know, man. I don't think I don't think Josh Dobbs turned into a pumpkin. I think the offense was just very, very tight and almost
Mhm.
afraid of blowing things instead of just being like, yeah, it's a good offense. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I want to touch on something you said, maybe apart from the offense. It was striking to me how sort of unprofessional, I guess, the New Orleans Saints appeared. Um, multiple 15-yard penalties, I believe. I could be wrong on that. I know they had at least one roughing the passer, but I believe they also had a face mask. Yeah, Tyrann Mathieu had a face mask at one point. Also, Danielle Hunter got his helmet ripped off, and they called him for hands to the face. That was really weird. Um, but the Saints had about double the penalty yardage of the Vikings, which is kind of par of the course for how this season has gone. The Vikings have been a very detailed, disciplined team. The Saints have not been. The Saints had two terrible interceptions by Winston. Yeah, kind of desperation throws, but also not really necessary desperation throws. One was like on a third down, 3rd and 3 or something, and another one was on a goodness, it might have been a first down. Just like these deep downfield throws where there's plenty of time left in the game. You don't need a home run. It's kind of how Jameis Winston plays, but just some kind of just bad plays and just ineffective and undisciplined football by the Saints. And I mean, unless they change that mentality, and like I said, it's kind of been their MO. They're one of the top penalized teams in the NFL. They might win their division, but that's I don't see this as a real viable threat in the NFC.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to figure this camera thing out. I agree with you. I don't think the Saints are like this powerhouse team, and I liked what you said whenever you gave the Vikings might go 4-5 down the stretch take, because if you look at the schedule, like let's just look at the next 3 games, right? Like if the Vikings went 0-3 down this stretch, it would like that could very easily happen. I think. I don't think that the Viking like Denver's on a 3-game winning streak and they are playing well. Their defense since giving up 70 is playing like a top 10 defense. Which is crazy to say that the same defense that gave up 70 has suddenly flipped the script and playing at a top
Mm-hmm.
10 level. But I mean, the facts are what the facts are. They're playing very well defensively. Russell Wilson is not turning the ball over as much. And look, maybe it's a little bit of that. There's a Kirk Cousins take that some people hold that the reason he doesn't throw a ton of interceptions is because he's not aggressive enough. And maybe that's what's happening with Russell Wilson. He's not exactly lighting it up. I think he's averaging like a 52 QBR this season. That's on a scale of 1 to 100, which is like average. Average is 50. So I don't think that Russell Wilson's playing incredible, but then you look after that and it's Chicago at home, and yeah, you'd expect to win, a home division game, but you already beat them once, and they're probably going to be hungry, and Fields is going to be playing, and the defense gave you trouble last time you played them without Justin Jefferson. Who knows what it'll look like? And then it's the bye week, and then it's Vegas, right? So, and Vegas is playing really well under their new coach Alec Pierce, and they seem kind of like they've lit a fire under them a bit with that. So, and I know I just went in depth on the next 3 weeks, so we can take a month off now. But I do think that there's a legitimate chance that like the Vikings aren't world beaters all of a sudden. Could we sneak into the playoffs? Absolutely. I mean, right now we're sitting in the 7 seed. We have a 2-game lead over anyone else that wants the 7 seed. It's looking up. The schedule is favorable, I would say, but on the same ticket, I don't know. I want to talk about what what do you think about the Super Bowl take that I gave at the beginning of the season? And a magic carpet ride of a year 2017, the good ending. You know what I mean?
Yeah. First of all, Alec Pierce, he was a wide receiver at Cincinnati, right? I
Yeah,
think you're talking about
yes. Yep.
Antonio Pierce.
I am talking about Antonio Pierce. Alec Pierce was a wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bearcats, now on the Indianapolis Colts, by the way. He's probably
Correct.
the second best deep threat behind Josh Downs, but
Um, yeah, so you mentioned the schedule, which is interesting. I will answer your Super Bowl question. Um, I thought it's really been interesting, earlier in the year we were talking about the schedule and it was kind of like we just got to get through the first 5 weeks. We got to get through that and we didn't. It was 1-4, it was blow it up, it was this is a disaster. Um but then what do you know? I mean, like that next stretch, yes, there was the 49ers game, but apart from that 49ers game, we looked at that stretch of, hey, there you are, you're back. We
I
looked
looked
at that
terrible.
stretch from about week 6 to week 14 of one of there's 8 games in there, and about 7 of them are very, very winnable. And they won the game that they shouldn't have won. They beat the 49ers. So you look at that stretch of 8 games now, they have gone 5-0 in that stretch. I don't think we were expecting them to go 5-0 to start that stretch. But when you look at the last 3 now, it's like they're all still very winnable. Yes, those teams provide challenges. The Broncos are better now than they were at the beginning of the season. They're a more challenging opponent. Division games are always hard, and the Raiders are all of a sudden a real football team. So there's more challenges in those next 3 games. But on the same token, the Vikings are providing an equal, if not greater, challenge to their opponents. So it's they gotta guard them too. So to your Super Bowl question, I think it's a very far-fetched idea. I think it's easy, or not easy, but it's exciting to kind of dream about it. Like, this feels very Case Keenum year. This feels very, I've even seen some stats. I think Dustin Baker tweeted out that the offense and the defense rank at about the same exact levels as they did in 2017 after 10 weeks. So you look at this team compared to 2017, you got the same vibes, the same feels. They're rolling. They have the longest win streak in the NFL. And you like to dream. I have a very hard time seeing this team, regardless of how well they're rolling now. I have a hard time seeing them winning a Super Bowl. Can they win a playoff game or maybe even 2? Yeah, I think so. They're a very good team. Like the fact that they have rattled off all these wins without their best offensive player, without their quarterback now for 2 weeks is pretty remarkable and speaks a lot to the cohesion and the culture of belief and togetherness that they've built here, and it's a real thing. It's not just a Hallmark card thing. um it's gotten to the point where next man up is no longer a cliche. It's just real. You're bringing in guys off the street like Anthony Barr and Miles Gaskin's back to the practice squad, and you got all these guys that have you know not had opportunities elsewhere. Josh Dobbs was about to get benched, and now he's won you 2 games. And so there's, yeah, maybe a little bit of a, you're catching lightning in a bottle a little bit, but I also think this team has a level of realistic belief in themselves, which I would not have imagined 6 weeks ago. I think, we were writing obituaries for this team on October 9th after they lost to the Chiefs, but, so never say never with this squad, but at the same time, I think winning a Super Bowl is a very, very, very tall task.
Yeah, I think I agree with the tall task assessment. I'm gonna stand by it. I mean, I'm not gonna look
You
when you're
have to at
six
this
and
point.
four. Yeah, you can't take that off the board. I mean, I said they were gonna score in the 30s a lot, and they've only done it once, and it was after Cousins and Jefferson were both injured. And I just I don't know. I think that they are playing a very competitive style of football, and I don't want to spend the whole show, just talking about like what the Vikings need to do. That's a very big picture question. I do feel like we
Yeah.
should talk about what happened in the game. So I'll give like a final thoughts on this
Well,
topic. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you, and maybe you can bake it into your thought here, but I want to know too, like what you're maybe concerned about with this team. Because I think there's a lot of upward moving gravy train for Josh Dobbs, and the NFL has Josh Dobbs plastered on their Twitter page, and um, in Dobbs we trust is becoming a catchphrase, and it's fun, and everyone loves the Vikings, and but I also want to hear like what maybe concerns you about this team because there's still areas that can be fixed.
Yeah, I mean, well, one, Josh Dobbs is the starting quarterback on it, and while he has looked good to great for, I'm gonna say, 4 quarters, he's played
Yeah,
7, right?
yeah,
So 2 quarters, Kevin O'Connell did him no favors, and then he came in basically at the start of the second quarter in that Falcons game.
yep,
And like he got safetied and fumbled, and then he also had a fumble to start the second half. So like
yep.
it's not a like let's not act like we, oh my gosh, we've got, the next Lamar Jackson just as our quarterback. He even in like the first drive of the game against the Saints, I think he threw 2 passes that he had one that was very like, oh my gosh, what was that throw? But then he had a couple, and I can't remember the exact timing of when they happened. I'm not good at doing this or whatever, but he had a couple of throws that were just like, if you put the ball a foot and a half this direction, it's a first down. It's a chain mover. All those kinds of things, and he didn't. It was kind of behind the receiver, and so the ball gets swatted out because the defense makes a good play. And look, you're limited with what you can do, but it actually does kind of lead nicely into my final thoughts for this whole like Super Bowl, how far can this team go discussion. Because what I have to say, they're playing a style of football that I think can work pretty well. I just wish they ran the ball better. But like the
Yeah.
defense is playing fast, they're playing aggressive, they're getting turnovers. They're like the opposite of what they were at the beginning of the season, where the offense, like Sunday, we take care of the ball, we don't have turnovers, and we pick Jameis off twice, and everything is good and great and grand. And that's the style of football you have to play. So the defense is going to have to kind of backpack this team, which is something that if you told me before the season, I would say, oh, okay, so we're going to be like in the Caleb Williams conversation. And instead, here we are at 6-4. So I
Yeah.
do want to say, what, I'm going to save this for final thoughts. My final thoughts actually make sense this week. It's not, man, I miss Mike Zimmer on the microphone. They're a little bit more connected, but this Saints game, I do want to get into it a little bit. Obviously Jameis Winston comes in, has 2 really good heroic drives followed by 2 just terrible drives, and then a failed Hail Mary at the end. We both kind of gave our initial thoughts on it. I thought the standout of the game to me, and you've been talking about this on Twitter, other than Josh Dobbs in the first half looking like, Hall of Fame bound, Ty Chandler might be the best running back on the team. Probably is. Are we all in agreement that Ty Chandler should be the RB1, and maybe Alex Madison gets like goal line work occasionally?
I think so. I mean, I think it is important, and the way that this team has sort of built their running back room, they like to throw a different guy in there every third drive or something anyways. So, when Cam Akers was still healthy, he would come in and basically just take a full drive, and he would be the guy who was the running back for the third drive of the game or whatever. And they'd sort of alternate maybe with Madison getting 2/3 of the carries and Akers getting 1/3. So I think, depending on Madison's health, he did get a concussion on Sunday, and so he might not be available this upcoming week in Denver. So depending on his health, I think, when he is back and ready to roll, I would like to see Ty Chandler get the majority of the carries. I think he's only had maybe about 15, 20 carries on the season now, but as Matt Daniels said today or yesterday, when Ty Chandler touches the ball, good things happen.
Yeah.
and he's right. It's yeah, he had some negative runs, and I think him and Dobbs had a miscommunication on a handoff that lost like 6 yards the other day. Um, so that's limited reps probably happening there too, but he's probably going to be the starter on Sunday. And I had a friend ask me like, "Okay, can we just, why can't O'Connell just admit Chandler's running back one, Madison's not as good?" And I think with the whole like camaraderie thing and culture that he's building here, obviously you still need to be upfront and you need to say like Ty gives us the best chance. But in some ways, this injury to Madison could be the perfect button for him to push of, because Madison's injured, Ty's now going to be running back one, and who knows, maybe we'll see Ty run for 100 yards on Sunday, and then it is just obvious, and then we
Yeah,
don't
and
even have to talk about it anymore.
it almost just so you know your camo is frozen. It almost like mirrors the Jaron Hall Josh Dobbs thing, because like let's say Jaron Hall plays pretty solid in a loss against Atlanta. Do you go to Josh Dobbs, or do you stick with Jaron Hall, who just
Mm-hmm.
played pretty solid? He wasn't the reason you
Exactly.
lost, but Jaron Hall gets injured, and you never wish injury upon anybody, and you hope that everybody stays healthy. But it's football; it's grown men hitting each other as hard as they can. Guys are going to get banged up. Jaron Hall gets
Yep.
banged up. Josh Dobbs comes in. I think it mirrors that situation really well. The difference is, it's the running back. So like there have been times throughout the season where we just haven't been using Ty Chandler, and whether it's because he doesn't pass block as well, whether it's whatever reason, I don't care, man. He looks, every time he touches the ball, he looks like he's the fastest guy on the field,
Yep.
and I think you have to utilize that. And the fact that we have not been, even whenever Cam Akers was healthy and Madison was healthy, the fact that we were not throwing him 1 to 2 screens or end arounds or some freaky little play a game
Yep.
is an atrocity. It truly is an indictment on Kevin O'Connell, who has coached the month and a half of his life without Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins, and the injuries stacking up. But I don't know. I agree with what you're saying. I mean, like Ty Chandler, this is
Yeah.
go run as fast as you can, which is very fast, by the way, and take this
Yeah.
job all the way.
Yep. Yeah, and to your point about pass blocking, it's obviously very important, because if you have a running back who can pass block as well as catch the ball, run the ball, and be sort of a, as they say, a every down back, that's huge, because then it keeps the defense off balance. They don't know if it's a run play. For example, if you bring CJ Ham in to do the pass blocking, the defense knows you're not running the ball. It's pretty clear you're not going to run it with CJ Ham maybe once a game, and the run play at that point would be a keeper or a jet sweep or something.
Yeah.
So that's where just using CJ Ham to pass block sort of gives a tell to the defense. However, football games do provide those sort of obvious passing downs. If it's 3rd and 7, you're gonna pass, so you might as well
Right.
bring in CJ to block anyways. Madison did have an amazing blitz pickup the other day. I don't know if you noticed that. I think it was on a big gainer to Hawkinson down the left sideline, where he stepped into the hole and just like two immovable objects, him and a defensive tackle, just ran into each other, and it was huge. It saved Josh Dobbs's life, and it also provided a big play down the sideline. So that is something that Madison provides that I don't think we're all certain that Chandler does yet, but you'd prefer to have the dynamic running ability that Chandler does. So I think we're on board with that.
Yeah. So
But
that's
yeah,
the standout on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, like, look, we all were doubting TJ Hawkinson. I don't think there was a Vikings fan alive that was not a little frustrated with TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah.
I was calling him ugly and being mean to him. And it's funny though, me and Delaney, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I promise to keep it short. Me and Delaney have started going back to church, and I am known at the church that we attend because we used to go there, and then we took a break for a couple of years because young adults, whatever. We started going back to church. I wore my Hawkinson jersey to church and like went and did all that. And then I went to my parents' house directly after, and it was my birthday on Saturday. So like had my birthday
Hey,
dinner and everything. Yeah, I'm 26 now. Had my birthday dinner and everything, and I'm in my Hawkinson jersey, and he's just bawling out. And what a birthday present from TJ Hawkinson. I've been nothing but abusive and mean to this man. And he goes out there, and in my fantasy league, he's stouting in my lineup. He hangs 30 points for me with like 11 catches, and he had like 10 for $120 at half and a touchdown. And we were talking before the show. He's probably playing with like cracked ribs or some sort
something.
of rib injury, midsection injury.
Yeah.
And I posted on Twitter, the Saints were tackling him every single play like they wanted to end his career. They were going for his legs, which, look, I get it's football. You go for people's legs. I don't actually think the Saints were bounty gating TJ Hawkinson, but they were going for his legs.
Precedent.
There is a precedent, unfortunately. They were going for his legs, cutting him down, and then he was like landing on his upper body and just folding like a piece of lawn furniture. It was disgusting to watch. It was everyone in the state of Minnesota and Vikings fans around the world were grimacing and just like wincing in pain for this poor man. What a performance from him. Defensively, I want to flip it around a little bit. Mekhi Blackmon, low key, like actually kind of good, and like, holy crap, how did this happen? We have a good defense. DJ Wanham also had an outstanding game. I mean, like, look, I know it's easy to come on here after you're on like a 3-game losing streak and be like, everybody sucks, and this guy sucks, and this guy stinks, and why does he play? So I'm trying to match the same energy. We're on a 6-game winning streak. Mekhi Blackmon balling out. Cam Bynum balling out. DJ Wanham in a contract deal balling out. Danielle Hunter made himself like $1 million extra by getting a sack in that game because he needed to get to 11, I believe, and so he gets there. Just the Super Bowl is on. I mean, let's just put it in pencil that we're in already, right? But no, who stood out to you on the defensive side of the ball as like, holy cow, this guy, did anybody have that breakout game?
I mean, I wanted to touch on Mekhi Blackmon too, and I don't need too much because he's been a revelation lately. He was, start of the season was playing a decent amount, and then he sort of got, I wouldn't say benched, but replaced by Andrew Booth for a few games there. And now they're both getting snaps, which has been huge. And both, frankly, playing pretty well. Mekhi Blackmon is the 36th rated cornerback if you look at coverage. But when it comes to tackling, he is the 5th rated quarterback when it comes to tackling.
Will you do me a favor? Can you tell me what a Caleb Evans is?
On tackling?
No, on coverage and tackling, like kind of both.
Sure.
Because 36th sounds like, oh, well, that's not very good. But I want to put into context that, like, how many defensive backs play, or cornerbacks specifically play in the NFL? Exactly. Like 3 that are going to be on every team. So we're talking about, like, what, 96 qualify. I know there's going to be more than that are qualified in terms of whatever, but like there are 96 stouting cornerbacks in the NFL. Mekhi Blackmon is in the very top of the middle of the pack. So like almost the top of the pack. That's incredible for, what was he, like a 5th round pick?
Something like that. Yeah, he was, or was he the 3rd round pick?
You know what?
Did we get him in the 3rd and Jay Ward was in the 5th?
Yes, I'm switching the 2, which it's just nuts. So well, you'll find I didn't mean to put you on the spot with that.
Yeah,
Caleb Evans take,
Caleb Evans has been surprisingly meh on tackling. At least this is according to PFF, by the way.
Right.
Only grades out at a 51, which isn't good. But on the same side, where this doesn't make a ton of sense, where he's been really good is run defense. So tell me how those two things make sense together.
Yeah.
But I mean, across the board, Mekhi Blackmon doesn't have any grade when it comes to pass rush because I don't think he's rushed once yet. But across the board, he is basically 70 or above on everything from defense as a whole, run defense, tackling, and
Yeah.
coverage. So, and yes, he's only played about a third of the snaps. So he, doesn't play every snap of every game, and he didn't play a few games early, but he has turned in some awesome games. And is really limiting, what people have done against him. I just want to see if what we got for stats here, just on like what he has allowed.
While you pull
I
that
can,
up,
I
let me
can maybe,
very quickly just
yeah,
say that my breakout, because you almost forget about it because like he didn't quite finish off a couple of the plays. We're not even talking. Josh Metellus is like the
mm,
superstar of this defense, arguably.
yeah,
Daniil Hunter, obviously, you're always going to give love to the pass rusher, but Josh Metellus on Sunday, how many? I think I counted like 2 or 3 times where he chased Derek Carr or Jameis Winston down and made them either throw a bad pass or throw the ball away. Like that's a great play. If you're wasting a down,
yeah,
that's in my opinion just a half notch below a sack. Like you're getting a very valuable pressure rather than like we got a lot of pressure on Justin Herbert in week 3 and he diced us apart because he just threw under it. But if you're making guys move off the spot and
hmm,
throw bad passes and waste that's huge. So I thought Josh Metellus played outstanding
yeah,
on Sunday, and I don't know if the advanced metrics support that or not. This is just the old Hawthorne eye test, but
yeah. Just really quickly here on the Mekhi Blackman stuff that I was trying to dig up. So he has allowed I believe, a 64.8 passer rating,
okay.
52% completion percentage, and only 116 passing yards against. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
um, 5 pass breakups, 1 interception. So he's playing really well. I think smartly, the Vikings aren't going to probably just throw him out there and have him start all of a sudden. Um, you know, See if he can keep this up, give him a few more snaps every game, and um, I don't think a Caleb Evans has been bad, but at the same time, he hasn't looked great. And so depending on how Blackman continues to progress here, maybe he does become our second starting
Yeah.
cornerback
Well, and I
for the
think I
stretch
love
run. But
I love the rotation aspect of the Vikings cornerback room because
mhm,
I can't remember where I heard it. I don't know if it was on like Pro Football Talk or it was one of like the major national outlets. They were talking about how the league is kind of silently shifting away from having a true CB1, like an
mm,
Xavier Rhodes, like Josh Norman. Like teams don't usually have that. Like good teams, they typically have like 2 or 3 average corners that can make they can make a good coverage play. And what's really important, and this isn't anything new, if you have a pass rush, that if you get one good coverage snap from the secondary, they're getting a sack. It's almost a guarantee that they're just going to get a sack.
yeah,
So I don't know. I love what the Vikings defense did against the Saints. I know 19 points is that's a hell of a game, and the first half especially. I mean, holding them to 3 in the first half.
hmm,
What a performance by them. Do you want to get into like the middle section of this show and talk about injuries? Just very briefly, give.
yeah. I mean, you can look at the injury report and do all that stuff too, but just really briefly. Um, KJ Osborne is going to be a full participant, it looks like, this
That's
week. So I
wonderful.
think we can expect him to play on Sunday. The window for Nick Mullins is open to return from injured reserve. He was also at practice today. Um, Jordan Hicks, I think we maybe mentioned it, but not too much. He had a kind of a scary injury on Sunday where he had a lot of pressure building up in his shin. They actually took him to the hospital. He had a minor surgery um, to relieve that pressure, and he's on injured reserve now. So he'll be out for at least 4 weeks. Yet another impact Vikings player to injured reserve. And sort of in a corresponding move, if you will, the Vikings um, brought in old friend Anthony Barr. he was a guy that I was banging the table to not return last year. And I think, frankly, it wouldn't have worked well. I think, his style of play, he's not exactly the fleetest of foot. I think he would have not played very great in the Ed Donatel defense. Nobody really did.
No.
Um, and, but I don't know, bringing him to this defense, as Brian Flores said yesterday, there's aspects of Anthony Barr, which can be similar to not only DJ Wanham, Jordan Hicks, but also Josh Metellus. So I thought that was really interesting that he had that sort of praise. I
He's
think it's a
putting him
little
at
bit hyperbolic.
safety. Just
We're gonna
throw
have
him
him
back
drop
there.
back,
Yeah. Deep
but I think
zones.
if anything, that's almost more of a praise for Josh Metellus because Josh Metellus basically plays any position on the field. So, um, that was interesting, though. I think Brian Flores sees another Swiss Army knife in Anthony Barr. I don't know. How do you feel about the reunion of the guy who used to be 55 but now is going to wear Eric Kendricks number 54?
That's disgusting, first of all. I don't know who's in 55 right now, but shame on
Andre
you.
Carter.
Shame on him. Who is what the heck? Andre Carter is in 55 and they're making Anthony Barr switch his number. We're talking about like look, I'm not saying that Anthony Barr's going to the Hall of Fame because he's not. I mean, he wasn't that good, but like I don't know, man. Like when I think of Anthony Barr, like my blood starts pumping. One of the first articles I ever wrote for purpleptsd.com was on my Microsoft Surface 3. I used the Surface Pen to draw defensive coverages that Anthony Barr could do in terms of like dropping Daniil Hunter into like out of the pass rush and let Anthony Barr come off the other edge to confuse O lines and having him in more of a and then like they rushed him 3 times that season and I was like, well, I don't know anything, but no, I love me some Anthony Barr. I think he's great. I don't want to see him play. I would rather him just be like a warm body that is going to.
Yep.
He should be the Sean Mannion of the linebacker room, where it's like, hey, if you have to come on the field, you're going to be up to speed and you're going to know how to do things, but we don't want you to get on the field. He's just old, man. I mean, he's just aged out of what you would expect him to do. I never considered him to be an elite coverage linebacker because I never really thought he had the same level of speed and agility that like Eric Kendricks had, but he was better at stopping the run and getting in to rush the passer if you want to send him on a blitz and things of that sort. So they were each strong in their own way, but I mean like Kendricks and Bow, that's just like that is my late high school moving out on my own, starting my adult life. Like it was Kendricks and Bow, and they were roommates at UCLA, and so I love the
Kind of
move.
like it's synonymous in some ways with the Williams wall. They're kind of a
Yes.
package deal.
Yeah, I would
And
love to see Eric Kendricks back too, just because I loved him.
yeah,
Not to
he
play.
just to be around,
Yeah, just to
show
say,
off his
yeah.
awesome hair.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mentioned the Madison concussion. He's in protocol. Like I said, I wouldn't expect him to play Sunday, but crazier things have happened. Because of that, I mean, we talked about Ty Chandler. He's going to get the majority of the work. Myles Gaskin just got signed to the practice squad. Oh, I should probably mention the Anthony Barr signing. He's just on the practice squad right now. He's not even on the active roster. So I'd be very surprised if he played this week.
Oh, yeah.
Even the following. He probably wouldn't play until after the bye unless there was some more injuries. But
yeah, I think that everyone always loves to talk about like who's the emergency QB this week, and it was like Cam Akers, the Falcons week, and it was like, holy cow, like what are we gonna do? I think the emergency linebacker is probably Josh Metellus, if I had to guess.
probably
Kind of feels like he's the emergency anything for this team, but I think that you have a better chance of seeing Josh Metellus come in at linebacker than you do. I mean, like, I'm not saying Anthony Barr's never going to take a snap while Jordan Hicks is out, but I would rather see Josh Metellus just come down and be a slightly undersized linebacker, maybe, than be watch. I'm just getting flashbacks of Daniel Jones carving us up because Jordan Hicks and Eric Kendricks are trying to catch up to whatever running back they're on.
Yep.
And so I don't want to see that happen again. I think it's interesting on the injury report. The Denver Broncos are very healthy, and that's
Mm.
kind of my segue into the Denver Broncos game. You look at who's injured on their team, and it's like Malvin Mims, who's the rookie wide receiver. He's kind of like a deep threat. He's
Yep.
limited. Ben Powers was a non-participant with a foot injury. He's a starting guard in this league, I'm pretty sure. So other than that, it's guys that I don't think get much playing time for them. The disparity in the injury reports is telling, and I think that the Broncos are hitting their stride. I don't want to write this team off. I know that it's easy to just say they gave up 70, and the offense has looked pretty good the last 2 weeks. We will probably put up 35 points plus and dare Russell Wilson to throw the ball deep and pick him off a couple times. That's just not. They're not the same team. I mean, they really have kind of undergone this mid-season transformation into a team that plays safe football and good defense, and they've played like good teams too. Like they beat the Chiefs, they beat the Bills. Granted, they needed some help from a 12-man on the field penalty, but they beat the Bills.
Yep.
They played somebody else that was kind of decent in this stretch. I
They
can't remember
they
who.
beat the Packers.
That's who it was.
Um,
So like not world beaters, but still, that's a look. If we're gonna celebrate Green Bay wins, they get to too. So,
yeah.
I think this is a legitimate challenge for the Vikings. This is another. It's similar to the Atlanta game. Am I terrified of the Broncos? No. Could I see us losing this game? 100%. And I hope the Vikings are taking them just as serious as they have any other
Yeah.
team. And I think this is like a weird silver lining positive spin on things. Because the Vikings are so injured, I think they go into every game taking it very seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Because they know they are limping into games, so they have to be on their A+ game, and it's kind of working. So I hope that they're not buying too much
Yeah.
into their hype, and we can go in here.
I mean, the Vikings have 12 guys on the injury report, and that doesn't even include Kirk Cousins and Marcus Davenport, who, Kirk's obviously out for the year, and Marcus Davenport's on IR. Oh, it also
Jordan
doesn't include
Hicks.
Jordan Hicks.
Yeah.
So that's like at least 15 guys who are affected by an injury in some decent fashion. Yes, 4 of those were full participants today, but, KJ coming off a concussion, Chris Reed. Anyway, a very banged up team, but like you said, it hasn't seemed to matter, and part of that is because they're just, it's everybody's hurt, so I got to step up. We
Yes.
have to be locked in because we're playing third string guys when we shouldn't have to, but we are. And we got Tristan Jackson out there taking meaningful snaps. So anyway, you were going to ask me.
Oh yeah,
about
it
the
was
game,
it
I
was
think.
just kind of what you're looking forward to in this game. I don't know. We kind of go back and forth on how we do the game previews. Some weeks we say like keys to victory. Some week we just talk about things that have us effing excited to watch football.
Yeah.
And so if you want to do a key to victory, if you want to do what's exciting you about this game, let's just talk about this game because we are very deep into this
Yeah.
show.
Yeah, I don't have to say a ton. I think we've talked a lot about sort of the state of the Vikings and things that concern us, and obviously that pertains to this game and future. But with the Broncos specifically, I noticed, they're a team that's going to run a lot. And I think, the Vikings have had a good rush defense this season. I think they've held opponents under 4 yards a carry, which is very good. But they have had a couple games where there's some leakages. The Saints at the beginning of the game, Alvin Kamara was kind of getting what he wanted on the ground. They had to sort of abandon that as they fell behind by 2-3 scores. The Eagles game, obviously, we got ran off the field. So there are areas in the run game where I believe, the Broncos could potentially exploit that, and I think they would love to win that way. They'd love to have Russell Wilson throw for only 200 yards, which is basically what he's done all season, 200 yards a game about. And so that's an area where they're going to have to be stout, and the Broncos do deploy basically a 3-headed monster in the backfield. So it's going to be, changes of pace. They got a rookie. They got Samaje Perine. So they've got different types of backs that the Vikings are going to have to account for. So that's something that, I normally wouldn't say the Vikings run defense is a concern, but it's something where in this game I'm a little bit concerned about. Um, Kind of off of that, to sort of simulate the run game, I noticed a lot of just like 3-step drops, quick slant to Cortland Sutton. That was like their entire game plan was slants to Sutton, runs by the running backs, and scrambles by Russell Wilson. That was about their entire offense, it felt like. And so they're not going to beat you with explosive plays. I think Sutton and Judy have that ability, but they're not really going to be guys who are going to be running past you for 40 plus yard receptions. So it's going to be a grinded out game, which is the Vikings are used to that at this point. That's kind of been their entire season. So that's kind of what I sort of have as areas of, focus for the Vikings defense. And while I'm talking about the Vikings defense, I'll just throw it out there. My game ball guy is going to be Daniil Hunter. It's sort of, low hanging fruit, whatever, the Vikings' best pass rusher. But something that Russell Wilson hasn't done maybe as much of this year, but is a problem for him in his career, is he runs around a lot trying to extend the play and then he gets sacked. He's sort of, led the world in sacks taken ever since he got drafted. And I think Daniil Hunter could feast on that. I mean, you can honestly even see DJ Wanham feasting on that. He's kind of the cleanup sack guy where it's, somebody else gets pressure and DJ finishes the job. But I'm going to say Daniil Hunter. I think he'll get a sack or two, wreak some havoc. He's been awesome in the run game this year. And so, that's going to be a key for the Broncos to win, is getting the run game going. And I think if the Vikings win, a big thing is going to be 99 causing problems in the run game.
Yeah, I think I like everything that you're talking about with the defense. And it's funny that you went with the Vikings, defense as like your matchup, and that you have the defensive game ball, because I so badly want Jefferson to play in this game. I have no idea if he will. I don't know what the situation is. There's really been no update so far this week, which I feel like no news is bad news in this case. I feel like you want to hear that he's stepping up. But like we said, not on the air, but before the show, Wednesday's the walkthrough. How much is he really doing? So I don't know. We'll see. But I want to see Jefferson and Pat Surtain out there. But either way, this Broncos defense has, I think they've forced like 6 or 7 turnovers in their last 3 games, and they're not turning it over offensively. So, like, Josh Dobbs, you just played a clean game. Good job. I'm still worried because of what you did in Atlanta with the 3 fumbles and taking a safety that I feel like you could have gotten out of the end zone there, Bub. But I would like to see, how this Vikings offense is going to do. And also, if the Vikings are, let's say they're up by 7 in the fourth quarter, is Kevin O'Connell going to like try and stomp on this team's throat? Or is he going to give Russell Wilson a chance to, make a mile high miracle happen and let them have some big comeback? So, Denver's a desperate team. I think they're playing that way. They're playing where they have to execute at a high level, and they are. And they've also held, like Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen to having some of the worst games of their seasons. So, now here comes Josh Dobbs. Let's see.
Quick thing, you mentioned the turnovers. The Broncos have forced 9 turnovers in their last two games.
Are you kidding?
They forced 5 against the Chiefs and 4 against the Bills. So
I thought it was like 6 and 3. Oh my gosh. We're gonna lose, aren't we?
So they have forced 16 turnovers on the season, and 9 of them have been in the last 2 games.
Good night. Look, there was nothing I want more than for the Vikings offense to come out and show that Denver defense, what a real offense looks like and hang like 84 on them. But I don't think that's going to happen necessarily. I think that I think it's going to be a low scoring game. Not to get into score predictions yet, but my game ball, and I'm Josh Dobbs. The game ball is Josh Dobbs. It will continue to be Josh Dobbs when I have the opportunity to give him a game ball, because he's just playing well, and I think that his legs are going to play a huge factor, the same way that Russell Wilson's legs play a factor in his game. But I think Dobbs will rush and throw for more yards than Russell Wilson in this game. I just expect. I'm not saying he's going to light it up, but I'm expecting him to play better than, what you would expect from what I have been told is a Hall of Fame quarterback on the other side. So score prediction, I said it's going to be low. I'm going to pull this one out of my I almost just said a bad word on the air. I'm going to pull
Hey,
this one
this is
out
a
of a hat.
family-friendly
This is
show.
a family show, and I caught myself, so I'm proud of myself there. But let's say 20-16. That's a weird score. 20-16 for this one. The Vikings win. I'm going to say they win, which means they will lose. I don't know if you've seen, but like the NFL posted their game picks, and everyone picked the Vikings in this one except for Adam Rank, who has kind of been like on a heater of going against the grain and getting the one team, like that one underdog or whatever. So Adam Rank is against us. We'll see if the football gods are, but I'm gonna go with 20-16. I'll pass it off to you really quickly, and then you can do
Yeah.
like score prediction, final thoughts, that kind of stuff.
Sweet. Yeah. I was a lot more confident in this game before I saw the Broncos really sort of control the game against Buffalo. And, you know, the Bills lost that game more than the Broncos won, if we're being frank. I mean, Josh Allen seemed like he was trying to play for the Broncos. It was just brutal watching him play quarterback on Monday night. But 4 turnovers, it's just, you can't win that way. And the fact that they still should have won if it weren't for a 12-man on the field penalty is remarkable. So I'm not super bullish on the Broncos, but I'm maybe a little bit more concerned about this game, just seeing what their defenses have been able to do the last 4 weeks. However, I still have the Vikings. I was on the Vikings the preseason. I was on the Vikings last week. I'm not going to jump off that train. For whatever reason, I always feel like primetime games have weird scores. So I'm going to go 26-22.
What?
Also, also a 4-point victory for the Vikings.
I love it.
There's going to be some missed 2-point conversions or blocked extra points, or I don't know. It's going to be weird. My final thoughts. First of all, just because it's you can't pass up this opportunity, and it's been the whole show. We haven't talked about it yet. The Vikings got to play they got to play the Saints last week, and they get to play Sean Payton this week. Like, how much better does that get? It's like Christmas coming before Thanksgiving, man. It's fantastic.
And you got to avenge the Falcons' loss. Don't forget that.
Yes, wow,
Yeah.
exercising all the demons. I will say something about the Saints thing. It's always felt like it's a Saints Vikings rivalry, and I think it started with the 2009 championship game, and yeah, like the Saints have won a couple here in the last few years. They had a good streak there from 2009 to maybe 2013 when the Vikings were just not very good. But basically ever since then, the Vikings have dominated the series. Lifetime, the Vikings have dominated the series. It's like 24-13 overall. So I'm kind of realizing this maybe never was much of a rivalry. And the Vikings have always just been the better team. Anywho, final thought too, just to give Josh Dobbs some more flowers because he's our guy now. When he was the quarterback for the Cardinals, he played 8 games. He started 8 of them. He had, let's see here, 6 games wherein he had a bad throw percentage, which basically means are you throwing off target, of over 18%. For context, that's not very good. Kirk Cousins' bad throw percentage is around like 3. It's like he doesn't make many bad throws. For the 2 games that he has played for the Vikings, Josh Dobbs' bad throw percentage is about 6.5%. So that's a little bit of a guesstimation based on some rough math that I'm doing in my head here, but it's really good. It's under 7. So he's had 2 excellent games, one at 6.9, one at 6.3. He's been accurate. He's been mostly on time. He had a couple bad throws against the Saints, but for the most part, he has been a revelation, frankly, watching him throw the football. So love to see it. Excited to see what he can do on Sunday.
Yeah, it's funny that your final thoughts are Josh Dobbs related, because mine are as well. And I have an impassioned plea to people who talk about the Vikings into microphones. It is okay to have this. I brought this up last week. It's okay to talk about the future of the Vikings quarterback position and whether they should go with Dobbs or Cousins or whatever. It is even okay. I like, even with this small of a sample size, I'm not ready to make a decision. But if somebody wants to have the hot take after, you know, 1 3/4 game of games that Josh Dobbs is the QB of the future, then you do that. That's on you. You can say whatever you want. What I will not accept and what we need to stop doing is talking, like, if your Josh Dobbs debate involves Case Keenum, Nick Foles, I can't remember his name, the backup for Dan Marino, who played like solid for Miami and then went to Detroit and was a dud. I mean, just took them to the cleanos because he was so bad. Stop talking. Like, stop talking about that. Because I don't think we can undersell the importance that Case Keenum played really well under Pat Shurmur, and then he went to Denver, completely different system, completely different, weapons and everything. And so everything changed around him, and he was suddenly like back into a giant pumpkin. And you can't convince me that if Case Keenum stayed on the Vikings after 2017, he plays probably at like a similar level to Kirk Cousins. Like, he knew Thielen and Diggs, and he played with confidence. And, obviously there's so many ifs, and what would we do with the extra cap space? And that's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down. But Josh Dobbs is going to, if he stays in Minnesota, let's say that that's the avenue that it goes down. If he stays in Minnesota, the offense isn't changing. Hawkinson is secure. Jefferson is secure. Addison is secure. Chandler will still be here. The offensive line should be relatively the same. At least like 60% of it will be fine. We can figure out the guards later. Like, I would be interested, and I want to have this conversation later in the season about like what should we do with Josh Dobbs, and I want to get an actual sample size, because right now, again, 1 3/4 games that he has played. It's way too early. I just think that the change in systems needs to be accounted for when we're talking about like, well, Case Keenum just sucked after that, or Nick Foles was never the same guy, and it's like, yeah, well, Nick Foles is a little different because his was like a month of football, whereas Case Keenum was like an entire season. I just think that we can't understate that. The weapons matter, the coach matters, and the Vikings are going to be running the same offensive system for, I'm going to say, at least 3 more seasons, probably. I don't think Kevin O'Connell's going anywhere. I think he can have a bad year or two and still get away with it and still, kind of be fine. But other than that, that's my final thoughts. I've been Jeldon. He's been Will. Follow him at Will Bad Lose. Check out the Bad Loser blog and VikingsTerritory.com. And subscribe wherever you get your stuff.
One more quick thing, just to make sure that I am an accurate journalist here. I was wrong on the Kirk Cousins bad throw percentage. His season this year was at 12.8%. So that is even more impressive for what Josh Dobbs has done here.
Yes.
Having a 6.6. I was wrong on that one too. 6.6 bad throw percentage. 2 games. We'll wait and see what happens over the next 7. But very good. Well done, young man.
Very good. I think the show, for as long as it was very good. Thank you if you stayed for the entire thing. That means so much to us. We very much appreciate you if you listen. We'll talk to you guys next week. Sunday Night Football, baby. Let's go. I'll leave you guys, as always, with a skull, y'all.